I did have a question about how you translate what's in your mind into drawing, being able to sketch an object or person at any angle. That's something I learned from college, that very thing. A lot of still life. It's like you don't think, I don't need to draw fruit. But in a way you kind of do. Knowing how something is supposed to look like in real life helps you translate whenever it comes to like making something that doesn't exist. When I say still life, I mean like just looking at something, an object in your room, outside, tree, or something that's sitting on your cabinet. Just looking at that and being like, let me try to draw that. Because like the visual's already there, but it kind of programs your brain to being like, this is how an object should look like from this angle, from this lighting, etc. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like you have to keep drawing. Because if you do stop, you'll get rusty. Drawing something a day, it won't hurt. Don't try to strive through to make a big ass project or anything. Like if you want to draw an apple, just draw an apple. Doing still life will definitely help in that regard. Once you lock in like how things supposed to look at things differently rather than just like saying like, oh, apple. You look at things and you're like, I like the lighting that's bouncing off of the skin of the apple. Then you're there. Download that information and apply it on like paper or on a canvas or on a screen in my case. The way I work is I use shapes, really. Thumbnailing. I mean, technically all of these are thumbnails. These little cells here are like little like places where I do my sketches and stuff like that. Example would be, let's say I want to draw an airship. I'll start with the perspective in mind and just do shapes first. And you worry about details later. You get the actual shape out first, and then it's like, okay, airship. You think boat, so think long triangular, piece. But then you're like, okay, well, you want to take it a step further. You want to do like an airship. So it's like, okay, well, what would it have? It'll have like a cockpit or the bridge, I guess it would be a better term for it. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, you said you want airship, right? So like, what would make an element of it to be an airship? It has like fans over off to the side here, like little propellers or whatever. There'd probably be one in the back here. But it's like, okay, that seems kind of skimpy though. You just want that to be your airship? Well, it's like, okay, well, let's think World War II, where we have like a Zeppelin. So like maybe like give it a big ass balloon on top, draw basically a giant football, and then have like maybe like a netting to keep the blimp part of the ship upward. Well, actually no, I mean technically this would be smaller. Actually, it's best to get all your inaccuracies done in the sketch phase. You don't want to deal with the inaccuracies in the inking or coloring phase, because then you're kind of screwed at that point. Play around with perspective. So like you have the shape, tweak the shape more to be more about like what looks a little bit more right. So you have like perspective here, so front part of the ship be more like in your face, bigger. And you can like layer stuff over. Don't try to be perfect. You just like play around with shapes and get something, and then you add on top of that, Actually be a little bit more creative here and do like unconventional shapes to it. Playing around with shapes will also like help like giving volume to things. You want like the style of like airship to have like a lot of chunky metal pieces to it. Okay, well, you give it these thick steel beams around and like have it be very angular, because then angular will give it the appearance of it being like chunky and sturdy. Keep going further with it. More support beams here gives it extra flair to it. Maybe it's more than just big chunks of metal. There's a artistic liberty to it. Maybe it'd probably be more like this way. There you go, that's a bit better. And then it'll have like a big huge like rudder along with a big ass fan. Why not go all out with it? I mean, there you go. We just made an airship. Use a lot of perspective when drawing these shapes. Yeah, I mean, I think just having the shapes in mind of what you want to do, like I said, if you want to do like like a blimp or general shape of football, but also like look at the football like as if like it's coming towards you, and everything else will follow suit. Same thing with the actual ship part. Think rectangle, but also rectangle with extra bits to it. How do you balance not perfecting lines, but also making it accurate. It looks like you're going over your OG sketch and adding more details to it. Yeah, that is the process because of, I would say, first time around, don't aim for perfection. Once you see like what you have already, and then if you're like, okay, this is good, let's try to make it better, and then you go in with the more like, you know, you want to narrow things down. Don't aim for perfection, go for like narrowing it down. Plus it'll be more helpful to you in the long run, because when it comes to inking, then it's like, you know, you take a lot of the guesswork out of inking. You want the inking to be like as smooth as possible. You want the sketch phase of things to be your building block, and that's sort of how you should look at it. Is like sketching is like you're building on top of it, you know, even though I'm going over things I've already sketched out, but I'm also building stuff like on top. So like right now, like I have these lines here, but I can actually add more to it to be like, okay, these are like ribbings to ensure the structure of the balloon, because they were there before, but like let's give them meaning. It's like a really big pin, but do that, do that. Having a good brush that can like give you a variety of volume also helps. Again, it takes out the guesswork. I'm like, okay, you look at that and be like, okay, yeah, it's the thicker line could be shadow. That way, you know, like, oh, okay, that's another steel beam that's going across the edge, the lining of the balloon here. Keep these middle ribs going across it. Actually, I'm not even content with this, but you know, I focus too much. Again, that's like more so like in the inking process of things, I think. Actually, ooh, that's an idea. Where it's like not complete, but you have that there. Ooh, then you have the fan going. Okay, there you go. That's an idea. I like that. But yeah, and that's the general way of thinking of it. Just like think of it as like you're building on top of something. Like if you're going over your lines a lot, it's fine because you're building on top of what you've established, and you're making it more clear on like yourself here. So when you, like I said, when you do go into ink your work, it's easier. I don't like the idea of it like hooking out. Adds more of an edge there. And if you want, you add like big ass bolts to it to give it more of like that steel look. Work on the big fans here. Give some implication of bolts here. Yeah, like a little bit indication of like stuff in the actual fans. This is where it gets like you can be like creative as you want. You want to like try something risky with it. This is your experimental phase here. Throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes like you don't have to go with the idea you initially thought. Like sometimes it would be like, oh, it's like I kind of like that more. Then you just go with that. And that's pretty much it. After that, you just kind of like shading and then lighting. Jeez, that's actually really bright. So like a lot of it is just like not worrying too much about getting it right the first time, just like having a general idea of what you want, and you kind of just like let that drive. And also like use all kinds of brushes. Like I just used like 3 different brushes just then. Use whatever you get, tools you have to help craft and shape what you're trying to achieve here. It'll all come together later on. At this point, you're good to go to just ink. Use the, you know, the shading and the highlights to guide you when it comes to like coloring. Drawing characters or complex scenes a lot harder. That's a lot of different shapes, angles, even in the drawing, like when you're sketching a character on stream. That's true. That's when figure drawing comes into play. In college, we learned how to do contour lining first. So contour lining is when you just draw something without picking up the pen or pencil. And like this would also help with getting a general feel of a form. So let's say, okay, right now I'm currently looking at my character. I have another tab where I have a B open. So let's say I want to draw him in the pose of being like lounging down. So like what I'll do is like I'll try to mimic the form of what he's in the position he's in right now. And what I mean by the picture of B, I'm talking about the one where in my ref sheet on my, if you go to my Blue Sky profile, like I have a ref sheet that's like right there. So I'm using that as my reference right now. And notice I'm like, it's all continuous squiggles, sure, but I'm not picking up the pencil. Right now, I just want to get his form down. And that's basically like what you should be doing. Don't try to go for details. Don't try to go for, because again, the mission is to like ensure that you have not picked up your pen or pencil. Or actually, let me draw something else. Let me draw like someone standing. Continuing to look at my my ref sheet. There's like a little fox dude that's like cowering because there's a section where I'm towering over him. What you want to do is just go for the shapes. Don't go for anything specific. And is it messy? It is, but I was taught that like, if it's messy, then that's fine. The goal is for you to understand like the shapes of what's happening, of what this model is doing. For us, we did have an actual model. And like that's something you can also like look into as well. Like, obviously, if you have a buddy who's like down to just stand in front of you while you draw, that's pretty cool. If drawing with contour lines would help like build the visual of that, because like I said, like it's still shapes at the end of the day. Like I'm drawing shapes here, but they're more curved. But you get the idea of like how those shapes like connect, like I'm drawing someone walking right now. You get the idea of like, and sometimes people make their whole art style just based off this shit, which is like, crazy to think about, but I think doing contour lines and just making something solely by doing that might help. I'm not an art student, so I'm not familiar with this. You don't need to go to art school. What you can also do is like, YouTube would also often have how to sketch faster, paint faster, how to shade faster. Like there are vast amount of videos you can watch. And I bring that up because, again, what might work for me might not work for you. So there might be a method that might be tailored more to your taste, so to your own speed as well. That's why I'm like not an advocate for college, especially for arts, because it's like you're only being taught whatever by one person, but you're only being taught that one thing by that one person, and what might work for that person, for that teacher, might not work for you. There are resources out there that could help you more than I can. How do you practice now that you're out of school? I continue to draw, but instead of watching video, I do have some videos like saved up, and a lot of it is mainly like tips and tricks on how to do this in Clip Studio Paint. Like a lot of it is like hardware based, but when it comes to like this, it's like, well, I lurk around. I go around, go to ArtStation, Pinterest. Make sure you turn off the AI filter. Generally just like exposing yourself to different kind of art and being like, let me look at that. Let me learn from that. If there are people who upload their videos of them doing like speed sketches where it's like, they recorded their own sketching process, watch that. Obviously like slow down the speed so that way you can see every step that they took. And then that would also help being like, I never thought of drawing in that way, and then apply that to your own. But that's also the beauty of the internet, where you can like watch stuff. I used to do it where I'm like, oh, there's an artist that I really like, let me like emulate them. And emulation is a form of flattery. It's like that means you really do like that person's art style, but it also means that you're kind of like essentially copying their shit. Like whether it be style or whatever. Like study someone's style, don't carbon copy what they do. Like for me, like I said, I would say home in on a technique that they do and apply it to your own. However, developing a style took me a while to figure out my own style as well. But even then, it constantly changes. I don't draw the same way I draw back in high school. Let's find out together what carried over, you know, from back then to now. Let's do this one here. How I do hair is the same. I think that carried over. I think back then I really tried to do a lot of curviness to my art. I feel like now I'm more angular than I was before. More to my point, things are gonna like change over time. If you feel like, oh man, I haven't like developed my style, I'm like, keep drawing. You'll eventually get there. But even then, you don't try to be satisfied that you have a style, because like that style would change over time anyway. The line is more bulky. Yeah, I think I developed more of using chunkier lines than I do like thinner lines, because I feel like thin lines kind of feel a little overwhelming. It's like when you use thinner lines, you end up doing a lot of detailing in the interior, which is like, man, you don't really need that much detail. Like let the details show in like the highlights or the shadows. You don't have to like draw every detail, is what I've learned. Obviously, like keep the thin brushes around for like variation, like on, for hair and stuff like that, or other details. Getting the actual like figure down, having thicker inking lines help build the character faster, in my opinion. But that is just me. What helped for me to get more angular is the kind of brushes I use too. Blaine being an example, or actually what I did here. The brush I do a lot of my inking with, it has like a sharp end to it. Like it kind of just cuts off. Rather than using like a simple rounded brush, to be curvy with it. And you can never really pull off like the perfect angled look. You see what I mean? Yeah, I think I got used to like my tools, and it's a fear of changing stuff around. Another thing you could do, like if you are afraid of like changing up stuff, let's say you do want to use your default circular brush, right? What you can do is be additive and subtractive. So having your eraser tool on deck, is it more work? It kind of is, but you have more control over what you want though. Let's keep adding to that. But I don't like that curve right there, so I'm gonna make it sharp by erasing. And like I said, it's more work, but like I said, I feel like you have more control over it. You have options there. For me, I just start off by using a very angular brush, and then that helps like cut the fat of doing the whole erasing and all that.